Alright guys, today I'm going to be discussing anxiety in a bit more depth so that I can kind of get a description, a useful description to you that might help further understand some of the other videos, and also maybe we're going to get onto the subject of trying to deal with anxiety and a way that we can help these things pass. And that's the most important thing, that's step one to me, always. Anxiety will pass, alright? It's not dangerous, it's not always difficult to treat. You need to reframe it, you need to understand it's not dangerous, it's an uncomfortable feeling, and eventually it's just going to pass. Whatever you do, whatever you found that will get rid of anxiety, it will pass whether you do that or not. I know that some people find, instant relief with whatever, it could be drink, could be drugs, could be cutting, could be a panic attack, whatever it is that you find, it's not necessarily a positive thing to do, but it nonetheless shifts the anxiety. So really what we're looking to do here is to try and do that in a more healthy way, a more productive way, and a more constructive way for you, so that you don't end up getting yourself in trouble or feel depressed. So, first things first, anxiety is a feeling that will pass. Now, anxiety is also a useful emotion. It's something that we get because sometimes we need to listen to it. If you're feeling anxious about something, maybe there's a message in there somewhere that perhaps you're doing something that you're not quite comfortable with, or maybe there's something dangerous about it. The problem comes when we experience anxiety because of thoughts that are going around in our head that aren't necessarily relative to what we're doing. So it could be that we feel we are terrible. I am so bad at this, I am so bad at that. And then we go and try to do something and we feel anxious about it because we're being unusually hard on ourselves because of the way that we're talking to ourselves in our head. Sometimes life sucks and sometimes we've got some difficult situations to deal with. And therefore you never know, you might have a situation coming up where out of the blue something can happen, someone could get ill, or that someone might get ill and you're worrying about it, and therefore that could cause a sort of general level of stress that's sort of ticking along all the time. And really what we want to be doing is learning how to manage this a little bit better, because nonetheless, whether or not the situation sucks or not, we've got to deal with it somehow. We've got to make the best of the situation when it's not stressful, and when it is stressful, we've got to learn the best way that we as a person can cope with it. So to talk about this a bit more in depth, I want to quickly go into the fight or flight response, which again is something that you can wiki. I don't want to spend a whole video talking about this and the ins and outs of it. But basically, the easiest way to describe it is that it's a human response system to threat. So the saber-toothed tiger and the caveman is the best example. Caveman's out doing his hunt, grabbing his daily food. Oh shit, there's a saber-toothed tiger, what am I going to do? So his body, his senses are going to be heightened, his adrenaline's going to be flowing, and he's going to get ready to either fight it or flight, fuck off, get out there, So depending on whatever the situation is, he'll either spear it, in which case the threat's gone and he doesn't have to worry, or he'll get off up a tree or wherever it is that he goes to get away from the tiger. Problem gone. All right, then he can relax. It's the same as if you've ever had a near miss in your car. You get a horrible shock feeling, or you see a fire or something. It's a horrible shock. Once the situation disperses though, and the near miss is gone or whatever, you gradually calm down until you don't really think about it anymore. Depending on the severity of it, it could hang around for a bit longer, but nonetheless, that's where we're at. So then what we look at is how to understand that this is a response to something that we perceive as a threat. Now, is what we're feeling anxious about actually threatening? Is it really something to be afraid of, or am I making something in my head bigger than it needs to be? The whole sort of catastrophizing, it's a small problem, but I'm going to see it as a huge one. So the fight or flight response is generally what will get us into panic. Because nowadays, honestly, I feel sorry for teenagers nowadays with all these things, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, all these distractions that they have. Social media is a massive problem, I think, because we used to finish school at 3 o'clock. I'm sounding old now, but we used to finish school at 3 o'clock and that'd be it. You'd go home, you'd hang out with a couple of your mates maybe. Nowadays there's a group chat going, 30 or 40 of you. People get brave behind keys and say shit they don't mean, or say horrible things to other people. So sometimes fight or flight is coming out when we don't need it to be. So this is an important thing to understand. Sometimes the anxieties that we're getting are brought on by something that we perceive as a threat when actually maybe it's not. There is a way around it. There is something that we can do about it. Or if there's not something we can do about it, we might be able to change the way we see it. One way or another, we've got to do something, because that will then help us manage the stress. Now, the other thing that happens when we go into a stressful situation is our body, because of the adrenaline that's flowing, our brain releases cortisol. Now, this clouds our thinking. So when we're stressed, we find it very difficult to actually get on with the task in hand because we now can't think straight. So that creates more stress because then, you know, we're trying to do this thing and we can't do it, you know, and all that. And then in the end, and we feel like we're going to explode. So then we panic about panicking. So this is why one of the things with anxiety, one of the best things to do with anxiety is to face it. Imagine you're going for a job interview and you're sitting there and there's 3 or 4 people in the interview room and you're thinking, oh yeah, that person there is like much better dressed than me. They'll probably get it. That one over there looks smarter than me. They'll probably get it. That one over there looks well intelligent. Guaranteed they get it over me. Anxiety's building up and up and up and up and up. You might decide, you know, fuck this, I'm out and fly. You know, rather than stay and fight the situation and face the situation, you get out of there. Now then, when you do that, obviously the anxiety is going to reduce because you've got away from the threat. But the problem is, the next time you're faced with the same situation, your anxiety is going to get higher. It's going to go up, not down. So this teaches us that the best way to deal with anxiety is to face it and not run away from it. So this is the whole sort of feel the fear and do it anyway. Now this is a useful tool because, and I'm going to go into this deeper in other videos, okay? So this is kind of just sort of a preliminary thing really to get you to understand the way that I see these things and then therefore how I work with them. But to manage this, we're looking at ways that we can change our viewpoint on something. If, for example, you're in that situation where you know something might go wrong at some point, so it's almost like a, you know, gradual like this, you know, right? Knowing that your brain is going to be clouded and you're only going to be able to focus on the thing that you're anxious about and you're not necessarily going to be able to see things in another way. It's very useful to start looking at things in another way before that happens. If you know it's something that could go wrong at any time, it's getting different viewpoints on it from your own, not from other people, but from yourself. What's a better way for me to look at this? How can I go about this that might not end up with me becoming so sort of irate or anxious or angry or frustrated or whatever? And then when you've got that and you've got a different way of looking at it, then that way when you do get stressed out, the more you practice it, the more you might have another avenue to explore. Because one way or another, this thing that blows up is unavoidable. So you kind of enjoy when it's ticking over, you enjoy that as much as you can, and you really get into that and you make every moment of that as good as it can possibly be. Knowing that when it does eventually go bang, you've got a different way of dealing with it. You've got another way of seeing it that might possibly help, whether it keeps you calmer, whether it keeps other people around you calmer, or whatever. You found yourself a different way of dealing with it that you didn't have before. And that's the key, really. It's kind of understanding that, yeah, you know, I can manage this. But first of all, we've got to know that anxiety passes. Because it's very scary when you feel anxious. You just want to get rid of it. And you think, what is it? And your heart's beating, you think, oh, fuck me, am I having a heart attack? You know, you're getting all tense and you're sweating, and you know, if you're at an interview, you don't want to shake no one's hand because your hands are sweaty. You think, God, he's going to think I've just bloody wet myself or something, you know. So a lot of things come up about with anxiety that can be dealt with. But first of all, it's understanding. It's understanding certain things are going to cause you more anxiety than they are others. Are they really a threat? Are they really dangerous? Can you sit with the uncomfortable feeling of anxiety knowing it's going to pass? Once you've done that once, you then realise, same with, you know, things like self-harm. You know, people have reported to me that when they've learned that the feeling passes, whether they cut or not, they then know that cutting is not the answer. You know, same thing with a panic attack. You know, there's different ways of going around a panic attack, but the main thing is to label whatever it is as that you're struggling with as an uncomfortable feeling. It's not life-threatening. It's not going to harm you. It's not really even going to hurt you. Okay, it's just going to be uncomfortable, but you can sit through it and it will pass. And when you do, you take the power away from it. You take the importance away from that thought that's making you anxious. And that's the key. That's the only way that I've found personally to reduce my anxiety, is to take the power away from the thought. Don't follow it. Don't go with it. So I might get a thought coming in going, oh, you know, shouldn't really do another video. Not many people have watched them yet. Some people are probably watching them thinking, what the fuck is this bloke on about? You know, my anxiety does kick in. And if I follow it, which don't get me wrong, sometimes I do, and it might put me off and take my confidence down a notch. But generally, it's like, I'm not going to follow that thought. That thought is there. I know it's there. It's okay. Almost like welcome it, if you like. It'll wash over me in a minute and it's fine. And then carry on anyway. The more you do that, the more you reinforce a different pattern. Not the same one that you've always done before. like the old saying says, that a great guy, David Shepard, told me, you know, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Very, very true. So with this, it's about really challenging yourself. Can I do this differently? How am I going to do this differently? What's a better way to approach it? What's a different way to approach it? I can't change the situation. I've got to deal with it anyway. As much as that sucks and as bad as I hate life right now, because I've got to deal with that situation, nonetheless, I can do it. And I'm going to do it, and this is how I'm going to do it. Even if you've got to get a piece of paper down, write some different ways of viewing it down. You know, seriously, because as much as I'm not trying to minimise this, but I'm trying to say that when it comes to anxiety and stress, our biggest enemy is us. It's not actually the situation that we're threatened by. If you see 5 hoodies coming down the street with chains, then fucking yes, be anxious, be stressed, get out of there. Do you know what I mean? But if it's a threat that's kind of something that you're perceiving to be a threat and it's not really life-threatening, there's usually another way to look at it. So maybe start there. And I'm sorry, this video's gone over 10 minutes, which was my golden rule, which I've already broken. But, you know, I got into the flow with it, and I think it's going to be quite useful. So I've allowed myself to go against my own word, I guess. Right, see ya.